Hey everybody, it's Brett with Incredible Getaways again. Today, we're going to be talking about how cruise lines may be responding to the coronavirus. Specifically looking at some of the things that MSC has just released and as far as how they're going to be taking on these challenging times. So without further ado, let's get started. Wow, it is hard to believe that it has been so long since we have been able to go cruising. Mine and my wife's last cruise was back in February. It's now August. And yeah, man, this is insane. I never thought that it was going to last this long, and I don't think a lot of other people did either. And didn't expect it to have the impact that it really has had whenever this first started. And so we're going to be breaking down what MSC is going to be doing. They're one of the largest lines that's going to be getting back to sailing sooner rather than later. And looks like that they're going to be setting sail in the Mediterranean. Now, currently there's no real definitive time when cruising will start back again stateside in the United States. But it's very important for us to be able to look at what they're going to be doing in Europe and in Asia as they begin to roll out the fleets in these areas. So that way we kind of have an idea of what to expect once cruising does start again here stateside. MSC has really broke out some really clear, very specific things that they're going to be doing on their itinerary as they start the Mediterranean cruise again. And so I just want to talk about some of these things, and I think that we'll see a lot of this with other cruise lines, some of the other major cruise lines. Whenever you look at Carnival, Royal Caribbean, Norwegian, I think that you're going to see this be the case for a lot of the heavy hitters. And so we're just going to talk about some things that we can kind of expect. We've listened to the different cruise lines, and we think that these are the things that they're kind of leaning towards. We see MSC is making this abundantly clear. This is something that they are moving toward. And I think we're going to see this a lot with a lot of the other cruise lines as well. So, starting off with number one, boarding times will be set. So, in the past, if you've cruised before and an experienced cruiser, you understand that this isn't anything new as far as the cruise line's giving you a boarding time, but they haven't really been very strict about that boarding time. So, you may get a 12 o'clock boarding time, for instance, and you would show up early at the terminal, maybe 10, 10:30, whatever time, before you're supposed to actually embark on your cruise, and they would just wave you through the line. You may have a little bit of time where you've kind of got pushed to the back to make sure those who have that boarding time for that half-hour slot, they're able to get on first, but generally speaking, you just kind of get shuffled into the mix and are able to go straight on board, even though it's not your designated time. There are obviously exceptions to this. Some people are a lot more strict, that are actually working at the terminal. But as far as from the cruise line's perspective, they really haven't cared, and most of the terminal workers haven't either. And so this is going to be a change, though. Looks like that they're going to be very strict on the boarding times, and the reason being is that they're going to make sure that they're creating social distancing, that that people are going to be going through some health screenings before they're allowed on the ship. And so all that's leading into some extra time. They don't want things to get too compact during that process. So boarding times will be set, and you will not come into the terminal and be able to get on the ship before your set boarding time. One of the other things, I kind of mentioned it just a little bit, there'll be some pre-boarding screenings going on. It's going to be something that's going to be relatively simple. We believe, looking at MSC, it's going to be a very comprehensive screening. Nothing too in-depth, it doesn't look like. So we don't know exactly what that's going to look like stateside. Once again, this is all things that we're taking from MSC that's going on with their Mediterranean itineraries right now. whenever things do open up stateside, I won't be surprised if you have to provide some kind of documentation showing that you have been tested for COVID within the 10 to 14 day range before you set sail, before you embark on your cruise. The Bahamas have implemented this for all travel. Originally, a couple weeks ago, the Bahamas said, no, we're not allowing anyone from the United States into the country. It's barred. Well, now their health services for the Bahamas, they have came out and they said, you know what? It doesn't make sense to keep a running list of countries that are and are not allowed into the country, especially with, some countries are going to fall off the list. Others are going to be added to the list. It's going to be a constant rotating thing, and it's going to be a lot to keep up with. It's going to be very complicated. So to create some simplicity, they are going through a process where you have to prove that you have taken a COVID test, that it's came back negative. You have to apply for a health visa. You go to a hotel, you're quarantined there for 14 days. Yeah, if you're planning on staying longer than 14 days, you have to take another test at the end of the 14 days and have a negative COVID test before you're allowed into the general populace to be able to do different things, whatever it may be that you're wanting to do in the Bahamas, whether it's fishing, whether it's going for some kind of excursion, whatever the case may be. So I won't be surprised if there isn't something like that that's implemented with cruising, very similar to that process where you kind of have a health screening before you ever arrive at the port and documentation to support that, as well as have that comprehensive medical screening done at the port. Couple other things to add to this. Once you're on board, this is kind of changing gears here. Whenever you're on board, what's some things to expect, some changes to occur. One of them is heavy cleaning. Now, if you've been on a cruise, you understand that those guys do an incredible job of keeping the cruise ship clean and in tip-top shape. There is someone cleaning 24/7 on board. Everywhere you turn around, there's someone polishing something, there's somebody cleaning something. You smell the cleaning chemicals a lot of times on board, especially in the areas around the elevators, maybe around the dining area for your sit-down formal dining or your evening dining experiences. And you'll see that constantly, whenever we've been, all of the buffets were constantly being cleaned and maintained. And so they're actually going to be stepping this up a notch as far as the onboard cleaning. They're changing some of the cleaning materials that they're using that are going to be better suited for disinfecting. So you'll notice that. One of the things that you'll probably notice whenever cruising does resume again for the States is that you're going to smell cleaning chemicals a lot more frequently and in more areas. Okay, so that's something that we expect based off of what we're seeing so far. Cabins are going to be cleaned every day, and especially high touch points. So, once again, for those of you who are experienced cruisers, you understand your room steward or stewardess comes in every day. They take care of any kind of dirty linens. They'll take care of, making the bed. And so there's not a immense deep cleaning that goes on, but there is a tidying process, if you will, or that's the way it's been in the past. Now this is going to be an actual deep clean of your room, especially in those high touch points, which is going to be things like doorknobs, the phone, channel selector, things like that. My wife's going to fuss at me for saying channel selector on this. The remote. So, what do you guys call it? I want to see some comments on this. You call it a channel selector or do you call it a remote? I don't know. Maybe it's a deep south thing versus, anywhere else in the country kind of argument. Interesting to see what you guys have to say to that. One of the other things that MSC is going to be doing differently, there will be no recycled air on board. So, one of the things that has been a major sticking point with the World Health Organization, the CDC, and many other organizations is that cruise lines, the way that they have worked in the past, is that they filter the air through the cruise ship. And so, the air that you're breathing has been recirculated air. It does go through a cleaning process to help purify the air of particles, but it's not really enough when it comes to the novelty coronavirus. It's not enough for other respiratory related viruses. It does a great job in providing you a good quality air. It's not like that you're breathing in toxic air, or that that the air would be harmful to a normal healthy person or anything like that whatsoever. But it's recycled air. And so one of the things that MSC is going to be doing is they're no longer going to be doing recycled air. In fact, the air that is coming into the ship, that's going to be circulated throughout the ship, is also going to go through a UVC light, which kills like 98.9%, maybe a little bit more than that, of any kind of particles that may be in the air that's being circulated through the ship. And it will be it'll go through an exhaust port, and so none of the air will be recycled, and all of it will go through a UVC light treatment, which once again is going to help purify the air from any kind of particles that may be present. They'll also be doing health monitoring on board throughout your stay with them. Throughout the itinerary, there will be constant health monitoring. How that will look out and flesh out completely, we don't understand all the details that will be going on with that. But one of the things that we can say with a certain amount of assurance, there will probably be places throughout the ship, more than likely in the walking areas, that monitor and check thermal body temperatures. And so you may be walking through a set of doors that have a set of sensors that check your temperature as you're walking through, checking for any signs of high temperatures that may be present on board, or elevated temperatures of guests. So, but what we do know for certain is that there will be a health monitoring process throughout the time on board. And that'll be for everyone on board. One of the other things that MSC is going to be doing specifically is create social distancing in areas. So in the dining areas, they're going to create wider spaces that's going to be used to help create social distancing. In the theater areas, there will be seats that will be left empty in between the seating arrangements to create more space and create more social distancing that's there. MSC has said that the pool areas, things like that, especially your activities areas, are going to be active. They're going to have those things available, but there will be policies implemented to create social distancing as much as possible. That's something that we can be pretty certain of. Once again, all of the major cruise lines, Carnival, Royal Caribbean, Norwegian, MSC, all of the big hitters, if you will, have all said that this is something that's going to take place. And once we start, cruising again stateside, we're going to see a lot of this kind of play out. One of the things that MSC has also said is that there will be advanced booking for activities. And so if you want to go to the spa, if you want to go to a lounge area for an activity, you will more than likely have to book all of your activities. I don't know if it's going to be all, but at least most of them, if not all of the activities, before you go. So it will not be where you just pull up your app and look at what's going on board during that time and go to the event that you want to choose, there will be more of a scheduling kind of systematic approach to this. And so once things fill up, they're going to fill up much quicker than what they normally would because of creating the social distancing. And so one of the important things that you'll want to do whenever things open back up against stateside, whenever the cruise lines are creating these opportunities for advanced booking for the activities, make sure that you're getting the activities and getting involved in the activities that you want to be a part of. All meals will be served to the guest. So MSC has said, there's not going to be any more self-service on any of their cruises. So no more going to the buffet and picking out what you want and making your own plate. It's going to be all self-service, and it's going to be brought to you as the guest. Something that we can really expect for all the cruise lines. It's one of the things that I've seen that a lot of people have speculated was going to occur. A lot of people felt very strongly that the buffets would go away, at least for a time and a period. And it looks like that's going to be the case as we're gaining more information and seeing more definitive plans that are being laid out. For a lot of the plans that Carnival, Royal Caribbean, MSC, and Norwegian have produced to the CDC, we haven't really had a lot of exposure to that to be able to understand what was in those proposals. I believe that's an effort on the cruise lines to be able to keep confusion down. There's enough confusion in the world today. There's enough, suggestions that are being made and constantly having to be tweaked and retweaked without injecting, more confusion that is unneeded, especially since the CDC hasn't signed off on any of the proposals by any of the major cruise brands for the United States. The only cruise line that has had the CDC sign off on their measures that they have initiated and submitted to the CDC that I'm aware of at this time is Bahama Paradise Cruise Line. Small line. Once again, they've got 2 ships, I believe, and so there's just not a lot going on. And even now, they're not going to be able to set sail because of the Bahamas order and travel restrictions. So be interesting to see what those guys do. I'm hoping to be able to do some more research on them in the near future. Maybe we'll do a video about it. I don't know. We'll see. So going on from on board to what is it going to look like with shore excursions, this is where it's going to get a lot more tricky. So even stateside, you look at the different states within the United States, and many states are banning other states from being able to come in and visit without self-quarantining for 14 days. And so you're confined to a hotel room or a house if you have a house that's there available for 14 days. Several of the states have implemented this. New York, Rhode Island, Massachusetts have all implemented some form of travel ban from other states and from people that are traveling state to state. We also see Vermont has done this. We'll probably see many more that do this. Hawaii has done this. Hawaii has a very strict policy where if you come to Hawaii, that you actually have to sign a legal document stating that you will self-quarantine for 14 days. And if you fail to do that, that you understand that that you can be charged with a criminal activity. And so it's something that is a lot to consider with even just in the States. Now you throw into the mix, this is one country and we are, one country. Now you add to the mix of many different countries with many different federal level governing bodies, if you will. And that's going to make things a lot more complicated. The Bahamas are currently not accepting any kind of real travel from any of the countries in the world. They've restricted it greatly. There's many countries that are not allowing any kind of travel into their country, into their territories. And so it'll be very interesting. For most of us that have done Caribbean cruises, we kind of have an expectation that I'm going to go, and I'm going to go to 2 or 3 different countries during my time on board. Especially if you're looking at a 7-day cruise, or somewhere around in that time frame. You won't necessarily get that with a 3 or 4 day cruise, but once you kind of get into that 5, 6, 7 day, you can start kind of having that expectation. That may change. The itineraries that we currently have known and come to love may not exist in the way that they have previously, especially as things begin to open up. Now, this all may change as time progresses, especially if scientists and medical professionals are able to come up with some kind of vaccine, some kind of reliable treatment for COVID. But until then, the itineraries are going to look different. That's something that we can feel pretty certain of. But whenever you do arrive to your destination and you go out on shore excursions, one of the things that you're going to expect is the same thing that we talked about on board and leading up before you board the ship. There's going to be a medical processing. There's going to be a medical screening that's going to take place. There's going to be those that are going to be checking you throughout that. They're going to create social distancing as much as possible. So instead of piling up 30 deep in a 8-passenger cargo van, you're going to see a lot different setup that's there. One of the things that really struck me with this is that this is going to require more time for disembarking for your shore excursions, as well as reboarding to your ship. And one of the things that I suspect that is going to result in is shorter times actually involved in the excursion. Now, I don't have anything to support that yet, but just kind of doing the basic math, whenever I get off and I'm going to go on an excursion, I understand that I'm going to get off the ship pretty quickly, 30 minutes, maybe an hour to get off the ship. I'm going to, go to where I'm supposed to meet my tour guide, or, whoever my excursion guide's going to be. I follow my group. They get everyone together. We go on the excursion. We come back. And so we can really expect that with the additional delays that's going to be taking place, they're going to have to make up that time somewhere. I really don't think that the cruise lines are going to expand the amount of time that you're in port to accommodate this. I really expect what's going to happen is the excursion times are going to be reduced, as far as not necessarily that an excursion that shows a 4-hour excursion is going to be reduced to 3 hours, but the fact of the amount of time that you would normally be spending engaged in the activity is going to be shortened. So whereas before, if you had a 4-hour excursion booked where you may spend an hour in going to your excursion and your disembarking process, your getting back on board and everything, and so you may have 3 hours involved in the activity. I think now that you'll probably see something more along the lines of an hour and a half, 2 hours involved in the activity, and then having to make up that additional time for reboarding, as well as disembarking as well for your excursion. So that's, once again, that's speculation. I try to stay away from speculation as much as possible and deal only with facts, but that's based out of some pretty strong facts and evidence that's there. I also want to mention Hilton Hotels. They're obviously not a cruise line, but I've noticed some of the things that they're doing and that they have introduced, and I could see it possibly working out with the cruise lines once again, we've entered into the realm of speculation for the last little bit, and so we're just going to run with it. Hilton has partnered with Lysol to create cleaner rooms, and one of the things that they are doing now is they are putting a seal on the door and the door jamb to show that the room has been cleaned and disinfected to the new standard. And so when you walk in, you'll see that seal, and that it hasn't been broken. No one has been in since the cleaning took place for the room. So that's an interesting thing. Won't be surprised if something like that isn't introduced at least by one of the cruise lines. And one of the other things I've seen some of the hotels are starting to do now is utilize your smartphone to be able to use it as the key card. So that's something that I'm really surprised, honestly, that someone hasn't done this before COVID. It makes a lot of sense. Obviously, not everyone has a smartphone or some kind of smart device that they could utilize for this, but I could really see the benefit of this, promoting a good quality app that would allow you to gain access in and out of your room. Once again, really surprised no one's came up with this before, and so something to keep in mind and to consider. We may see that one day. With all that said, to kind of close the booking itself, looks like that the cruise lines that are beginning to set sail in Europe and as well as some parts of Asia, looks like that the guest capacity has been restricted tremendously down to around 60%, utilizing only outside cabins. So, your balconies, your outside staterooms, things of that nature. Be interesting to see how all of this plays out. Nonetheless, I want to thank everybody for watching today. I hope that you have had a wonderful day wherever you are. Make sure that you check out our website at Incredible Getaways. Our website is www.travelwithig.com. We'd love to be able to help you book your next getaway. It doesn't matter if it is a hotel, if it is a car rental, if it's, travel vacation protection, some kind of travel insurance, cruising whenever that may return, stateside, whatever it is, we're here for you. We want to be able to help you have an incredible getaway. That's why we are Incredible Getaways. With all that being said, thanks guys, and until then, ciao baby.